When was the last time you really stopped and looked at your life carefully? It seems like we're always busy, doesn't it? The pace of life pulls us along, one commitment after another, one worry after another. But what if your anxiety isn't just about the things you have to do or how racing your mind is? What if deep down it's a sign of something deeper, a cry from your soul asking for change? You may have asked yourself, is my anxiety just a passing symptom? Or is it telling me I'm ignoring something I already know I need to change in my life? This isn't a simple question to answer, because when we're dealing with anxiety, we get lost in the rush, distracted by the pain, but forget to look squarely at what's really causing this discomfort. And then the cycle begins. You try to ignore the pain, try to move on, but the anxiety keeps coming back, stronger, more present, harder to control. What if I told you that the secret to overcoming this lies precisely in asking this difficult and painful question? Asking if you're truly living the life you were meant to be living. Asking if you're making the right choices, if you're being true to yourself. Because what no one told you is that anxiety isn't just about what you're feeling. It has something to teach you, something you already know but don't have the courage to face. It's asking you to see what's right in front of you and stop fooling yourself. The truth no one wants to hear is that, at some point, we all feel pain. Maybe not in the same way or with the same intensity, but we all experience it. Sometimes it's obvious, other times it's more subtle. But there's something profound and universal about human pain. There's no escaping it, no matter how hard you try. Now the question is, what pain are you choosing to carry? There's a stark difference between the pain of growing, of learning from life, and the pain of living paralyzed by anxiety. The pain of forcing yourself to move forward, of seeking your true calling, of facing yourself, is a pain that brings growth, that brings liberation. But there's another pain, the pain of fear, of constant doubt, of frustration and paralysis, the pain of not living up to your potential. And this pain, this silent pain, eats away at you from within, because you know, deep down, that you could be doing more, that you could be being more. And every day you move further away from who you truly are, the more this pain worsens. Now think for a moment. How many times have you felt anxious but weren't sure why? Maybe you were distracted by work, relationships, or the relentless pursuit of external validation. But deep down, your soul was screaming. It was begging you to wake up and face what truly needs to change. This is existential pain, the pain of not living in alignment with what you truly know to be true. Most people aren't anxious because they have a chemical problem or an external condition. The truth is much simpler, and at the same time, more difficult to face. People are anxious because they know somewhere deep down that they're living below their potential. They're aware that they're ignoring their soul's calling, the impulse that says, do what you were born to do. This is the true root of anxiety. It's not a lack of skills, it's not a lack of intelligence, it's a lack of courage. The courage to challenge yourself, to step out of your comfort zone, to face your fears and insecurities head on. Most of us prefer to run away. Running away is more comfortable, but it also opens the door to constant suffering. When you run away, you feed the monster, and the monster grows until it takes over everything you hold most precious. If you can understand this, if you realize that the root of your anxiety isn't just about what's outside but about what's inside you, maybe things will start to make more sense. Because somewhere, you know you need to do something. Change, take action, stop living half-heartedly. You know you need to become who you truly are. This can be terrifying, but it's also liberating. And perhaps at this moment you feel the time has come to make the hardest choice of all, to stop running from pain, to stop running from your fears, to stop running from yourself. But in doing so, you will find something far more powerful than pain. You will find freedom. True freedom is not the absence of suffering, but the courage to face it. And the true cure for anxiety begins when you allow yourself to live this truth. Now you might be wondering, I understand what you're saying, but where do I start? How do I deal with this pain head on? How do I escape this anxiety trap that just won't let me go? I understand. And this is where one of the greatest truths Jordan Peterson shared with the world comes in. He said, you don't run away from suffering. You choose the kind of suffering you're willing to endure. It seems a little hard to swallow, doesn't it? But when you begin to Understand this deeply. Everything changes. Suffering is not optional. No matter how hard you try, you won't avoid it. But what you can choose is the kind of suffering you're willing to bear. You can choose to suffer because you're afraid to look at what needs to change in your life, or you can choose to suffer while trying to become who you're truly meant to be. The truth is, there's no growth without pain. There's no evolution without some kind of discomfort. The suffering that comes from facing your fears, from making difficult decisions, from confronting your limitations. This kind of suffering is what will transform you. It's what makes you grow. When you choose to face the truth, when you decide you're not going to deceive yourself anymore, you'll go through a pain that will be worth it. It will be difficult. You'll be afraid. You'll feel overwhelmed. But the reward is being who you truly are. This is what Peterson teaches us. Anxiety is often not the problem itself. The problem is the denial that something needs to change. Suffering comes from denying your true nature, from living in disagreement with your truth. This is powerful, because it takes us out of the victim position. We are no longer just victims of anxiety. Now, we face a choice. We can choose to continue suffering by not facing our truth, or we can choose the suffering that comes from striving to become better, braver, and more authentic. Anxiety, in a sense, is an opportunity. It's a signal that something needs to change in our lives, and this is something you have the power to change if you choose to make the necessary change. I'm not saying it's easy. Not at all. The path to overcoming anxiety is long and challenging. But by embracing this suffering, you begin to see things differently. And in the end, the suffering transforms into something you carry with more dignity. You realize you're carrying the right weight, the weight that takes you where you truly need to go. And this is where many of us fail. The suffering most people choose is the suffering of denial, the suffering of continuing to live a life that doesn't reflect who they are, of continuing to disconnect from their own truth. This is suffocating. It creates anxiety. It creates internal frustration. And at some point, this pain will become unbearable because you can no longer run away from who you are. So how do you get started? How do you take the first step? First, you need to accept that change will come. With pain, you need to accept that there's no avoiding the pain of growing up, of looking inward and seeing the things you've been ignoring. And then, you must act. Action is key. Peterson says, you don't get over your anxiety by trying to feel better. You get over it by becoming a better person. This means that change doesn't come from seeking immediate relief. It doesn't come from seeking a quick fix or a temporary escape. True change comes when you begin to act with courage, when you choose to live with intention, with purpose, when you begin to become a stronger, truer person. You were taught from a young age that feeling anxious is a sign of weakness. Perhaps unintentionally, the people around you, your friends, family, even teachers, told you that if you were stronger, calmer, more at peace with yourself, your anxiety would disappear. That's the message you grew up hearing, isn't it? And for a long time, you believed this. After all, if everyone around you says it, it must be true. Anxiety is something to be hidden, something to be fought with all your might, something that needs to be overcome. Society has no patience for anxiety. It wants quick results, immediate solutions. Anxiety, in its view, is an obstacle, and obstacles need to be removed. But what if I told you this idea is completely wrong? What if, in fact, anxiety isn't a sign of weakness? What if, instead, it's a manifestation of strength, a hidden force trying to teach you something valuable? This common view of anxiety as weakness is a belief that must be broken, because anxiety can be an alarm, a signal that something in your life is out of balance. It can be a warning that you're living a life that isn't yours, that you're distancing yourself from your true essence. And this, rather than being a sign of weakness, is actually a wake-up call, asking you to look within and do something about it. It's like a flashing light on your car's dashboard, telling you something's wrong with the engine. You can ignore the light, but the consequence will be a complete breakdown later. Likewise, anxiety doesn't go away when you try to run from it. It only disappears when you stop and pay attention to what it's really trying to tell you. Anxiety is the expression of an existential discomfort, of something in your life that isn't right. And if you ignore this discomfort, it will grow, it will intensify. What you need to understand is that anxiety isn't here to defeat you. It's here to challenge you, to show you where you're broken, where you need to grow. It's a reflection of an unspoken truth that needs to be faced. So, instead of being ashamed of it, instead of seeing anxiety as a sign of weakness, you should see it as the opposite. See it as a sign that something within you is awakening, something that needs to be acknowledged. It reminds you that you are stronger than you think. It challenges you to face what you've been avoiding. And if you decide to accept this challenge, you will find that anxiety begins to lose its power over you. Instead of fighting it, you begin to understand what it's trying to teach you. You begin to use anxiety as fuel for change, as a force that propels you forward. And over time, you'll see that it no longer controls your life. You're finally in control. Anxiety, as we've seen, isn't just a mental problem or something superficial. It's existential. It stems from a deep discomfort between who you are and who you're becoming. Have you ever stopped to think about this? Have you realized that often anxiety is a direct reflection of how disconnected you are from your inner truth? Anxiety manifests when you get lost in other people's expectations, in obligations that aren't yours, in promises you make to yourself but don't have the courage to keep. This creates a distance between what you truly desire and what you've actually done. And with that, anguish is born, because the human soul doesn't lie. It knows when something is out of place. Now, the invitation I want to extend to you is an invitation to self-knowledge, for you to truly listen to what your anxiety is telling you. What is it trying to reveal about your life, your choices, the steps you've taken? Because the answer to your anxiety isn't found in magic formulas or quick fixes. It's within you. It's inside you, waiting for you to listen. And what you'll hear when you listen to your anxiety is something very powerful. The truth. The truth about the things you've been neglecting. The truth about the fears you've been ignoring. The truth about the paths you've been avoiding because the journey seems scary and uncertain. The truth about your own potential, the one you haven't yet had the courage to explore. But you can start to change all that. The first step is listening. Yes, that's exactly it. Listening to your anxiety, listening to your deepest feelings, and stopping pretending everything is fine when it's not. Because if you keep ignoring that voice, it will scream louder and louder until you can't ignore it anymore. And the anxiety will become stronger, more uncontrollable, to the point where it will take over everything. So, instead of running away, pause, take a deep breath, look within. What's causing this feeling? What is it trying to tell you? I know it can be uncomfortable. The truth is never easy to face, but believe me, it's liberating. When you start listening to yourself, you begin to understand that you can make different choices, that you can live more truthfully, more authentically. And when you start living more authentically, anxiety loses its power. It's no longer the enemy. It becomes simply an indication that something needs to be adjusted, that you're on the right path. You are capable of changing your reality. I'm not talking about magic or quick fixes. I'm talking about a profound process of transformation, which begins with the courage to listen to yourself. When you decide to look within and pay attention to what's causing your anxiety, you begin to understand that the key to peace lies within you. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I understand that I need to listen to my anxiety, but how do I do that? How do I face this monster that's paralyzing me? And this is where Jordan Peterson's teaching comes in, which cuts to the chase. He says, face the chaos. That's where your potential lies. This is one of the greatest challenges you'll ever face. Looking at the chaos in your life and instead of running away, deciding to embrace it. Deciding to no longer hide from your own fears, your own insecurities. This is the path Peterson proposes, facing what you're afraid to face. This takes courage. This takes strength. Because yes, anxiety is a reflection of your fears, but instead of running away, you need to enter that dark place, take a step into the darkness, and confront what you fear. It's not easy, I know. No one likes to face their inner monsters, but if you don't, what will happen? Will you keep running away? Will you keep running from what's consuming you from the inside out? Here's the thing. Anxiety will keep haunting you. It will keep growing. But the moment you decide to address what's terrifying you, something powerful begins to happen. You begin to take control of your life. Chaos stops being something that dominates you and starts to become something you can manage. You begin to understand that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have everything under control all the time. What you need to do is accept that life is unpredictable, that chaos is part of the journey, and instead of resisting it, you begin to dance with it. You begin to accept that, even with all the fears and insecurities, you're capable of moving forward. Most people try to avoid chaos at all costs. They hide in the relentless pursuit of stability and predictability. But the truth is, when you avoid chaos, you're avoiding growth. You're avoiding true transformation, because it's in chaos that potential lies. It's there, in the unknown, that you find the opportunity to become stronger, braver, more whole. If you keep trying to control every detail, trying to keep everything perfectly organized and safe, you'll find that this will only increase your anxiety. Why? Because life is uncontrollable. The world is unpredictable. And no matter how hard you try to control everything around you, you won't avoid chaos. The only way to deal with it is to face it, and the only way to grow is to embrace it. Peterson reminds us that true strength lies not in protecting yourself from chaos, but in learning to navigate it. Fear won't disappear. Anxiety won't vanish overnight. But by facing what you fear, by looking your monsters in the face, you'll discover you're capable of more than you imagined. If this conversation has clarified anything within you, give back with whatever you can. A click, a subscription. It shows that it's worth continuing. And when you begin to face the chaos of your life, you'll find that anxiety loses its power over you. It stops being an insurmountable obstacle and becomes just part of the process. Anxiety doesn't go away, but it becomes manageable, a force you can control, not the other way around. It becomes a reminder that you're alive, that you're growing. Anxiety is like a monster you pretend not to see. It starts small, almost imperceptible, a strange feeling in your chest, a restlessness you try to ignore. You might recognize it, but you try to move on with your life, pushing this discomfort under the rug. And so it grows, little by little, becoming harder and harder to ignore. It begins to dominate your thoughts, corrupt your emotions, and take over your actions. This monster, which you thought you could control, is now everywhere. And the more you pretend not to see it, the more it grows, the more impossible it becomes to ignore. It swallows your mornings, your nights, your relationships, your moments of peace. It becomes a constant presence, a shadow looming over your life, until the point comes when this monster becomes bigger than you. It takes over everything you love. It feeds on your inaction, your hesitation. But you see, this monster isn't invincible. It only gains power when you allow it to control you. When you choose not to look at it, when you choose to continue distracting yourself instead of facing what's going on inside you. It grows because you try to pretend it doesn't exist. And the more you ignore it, the more unstoppable it becomes. Now imagine you decide to take the first step. You begin to see the monster for the first time, without fear, without shame. You look it in the eye and say, "I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm going to face you." And that's when the magic begins to happen. The monster, which once seemed invincible, begins to lose its strength, because it feeds on fear. It grows, stronger when you're afraid to face it. But when you decide to look at it, it loses control. It begins to shrink, losing its strength. Facing the monster of anxiety is no easy task, but by doing so, you become stronger. You begin to understand that anxiety is not your enemy, but a part of you that needs to be understood. Anxiety doesn't have to be something that paralyzes you. It can be something that frees you if you learn to face it, understand it, and act despite it. The monster metaphor is a powerful way to understand anxiety, because in truth the monster was never as big as it seemed. It was always a projection of your fear, of your inability to face what was inside you. When you begin to act courageously, the monster loses its power, and more importantly, you begin to regain control over your life. The monster is not invincible. It only gains strength when you feed it with fear. But when you decide to face it, it begins to shrink, and you begin to live again. And no, it won't happen overnight. But believe me, every step you take toward the monster, every small victory you achieve, will empower you. You'll discover you're capable of much more than you ever imagined. And when you look back, you'll see that the anxiety that seemed so overwhelming was actually never bigger than you. The moment has arrived. The turning point. You can no longer ignore what's happening. The monster you've been avoiding is here, staring you in the face. But instead of continuing to hide, you decide to step forward. You stop lying to yourself. You finally admit that anxiety isn't something you'll overcome once and for all, but rather something you can learn to live with, something you can learn to control. And in that moment, something incredible happens. You begin to realize that no matter how afraid you've been, how much you've doubted and felt helpless, you're still here. You're still standing. Even with the weight of anxiety, you're still fighting. And this fight, however difficult it may be, is actually a sign that you're growing, that you're becoming the person you were always meant to be. This is the turning point. The moment you stop being a victim of your anxiety and start becoming its master. The moment you embrace fear and anxiety instead of rejecting them. You stop seeing anxiety as an obstacle and start seeing it as an opportunity. A chance to prove to yourself that even in the face of fear, you can act. Even trembling inside, you can make decisions and move forward. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the ability to act despite fear. You don't have to wait to feel 100% safe or without any doubt. True courage comes when you take the first step, even knowing the anxiety is still there. It will never completely disappear, but what matters is what you do with it. You can choose to be paralyzed by it, or you can choose to use it as fuel to move forward. This is the turning point. This is the moment to make the decision to live with courage, to act despite anxiety. Change doesn't happen when you find the magic solution to your problems. It happens when you decide that despite everything, you will continue the journey. That, despite the pain, you will move forward. That's courage. And that's what will truly transform your life. Anxiety will never be easy to deal with. It will always exist, at some level, as long as you live. But the moment you decide to act, the moment you decide that anxiety will no longer control your life, you free yourself. You take control of your story and begin to write a new chapter. That is true power. So, maybe this is the day you finally decide to take the step toward change, the day you embrace your anxiety, face your fears, and begin walking toward your true potential. No matter how scary it is, no matter how afraid you still feel, what matters is that you've made the decision to move forward. And from that moment on, anxiety loses its grip on you. You begin to take control of your life. I'm not here to sell you a quick fix. I'm not here to promise that by the end of this video, you'll be free of all anxiety, free of any burden, free of any fear. That would be a lie, and you know it. Anxiety doesn't disappear simply because you decide to change your mindset. True transformation doesn't happen in a flash. It doesn't happen in a moment of inspiration or revelation. Real transformation begins when you decide to accept that the path to overcoming anxiety is long, challenging, and requires daily choices. Every day you'll have to take a step toward what scares you. Every day you'll have to face the monster you thought you could ignore, the one you thought you could hide. But, and here's the crucial point, every step you take, no matter how small, will bring you closer to a stronger version of yourself. Transformation isn't magic. It doesn't happen because you get the technique right or find the ideal solution. It happens because day after day, you make the choice not to run away. You make the choice to act despite your fear. With each step, with each new decision, anxiety begins to lose its grip on you. It begins to become something you carry more lightly, with greater acceptance. And that, yes, is what brings true peace. Not the absence of anxiety, but the ability to live with it and still move forward. When you choose to face anxiety, when you choose to use this energy as fuel for your journey, anxiety loses its power to paralyze you. What once seemed like an unbeatable monster becomes just a shadow that, even so, can be challenged and faced. And no matter how much anxiety tries to hold you back, it will no longer be able to stop you from living the life you were called to live. Because life will not be easy. There will be moments of pain, moments of difficulty, but the courage to move forward is what will make all the difference. I'm not saying it will be simple. The anxiety will persist. But the difference is that by taking these small steps every day, you begin to see that it no longer rules your life. It no longer holds the reins, because you've decided to be bigger than it. You've decided to use every moment of fear as an opportunity to grow. The promise I can make to you here is this: it won't be easy, but it will be real. It will be a real, profound, and lasting transformation because it comes from within. And that's something no one can take away from you. When you take control of your life, when you start making choices that align your life with your truth, nothing else matters. Anxiety loses its power. It can no longer dictate the terms of your existence. And this freedom is what truly transforms life. Don't expect anxiety to disappear overnight. Don't expect change to magically happen. What you can expect is that with every step you take, with every decision you make to live more authentically, you will become stronger. And as you become stronger, anxiety will begin to lose its grip on your life. Now, after everything we've discussed, after everything you've understood about anxiety, about the pain that comes from living out of alignment with your truth, I want you to take one thing with you. You don't get over anxiety by trying to feel better. You get over it by becoming a better person. These words from Jordan Peterson are the true turning point, because that's exactly what you need to do to overcome anxiety. It's not about seeking a temporary sense of relief. It's not about trying to get rid of the pain with distractions, medication, or superficial techniques. True overcoming comes from something much deeper. You overcome anxiety not by trying to be okay all the time. You overcome it when you decide to grow, when you decide to become a stronger person. Anxiety only loses its power over you when you face it head-on and decide to no longer be its slave. When you choose to carry the right weight, the weight that will take you to a better place, it stops controlling your life. Anxiety isn't an enemy you can simply defeat in battle. It's a reflection of something happening inside you, and if you keep running from it, it will continue to grow, it will continue to haunt you. But if you make the decision to confront it, to grow with it, it will lose its power over you, and you will begin to live more authentically, more at peace with your truth. What Peterson is telling us is that true overcoming of anxiety doesn't come from trying to be comfortable. It doesn't come from trying to seek pleasure or happiness immediately. It comes from the courage to become a better person, from becoming someone braver, more truthful, more aligned with who you truly are. When you start acting despite your anxiety, when you start moving toward what you fear, you begin to transform your life. Anxiety stops being an obstacle and becomes a bridge to your growth. It becomes the catalyst for change, for evolution. No matter how much fear you still feel, the only thing that matters is the decision to move forward. Because courage, as Peterson says, it is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting, even when trembling with fear. Courage is continuing, even with anxiety by your side. And you will keep going. Every step you take, every fear you face, will make you stronger. And when you look back, you'll realize that the anxiety, which seemed so overwhelming, no longer holds the same power over you. It lost its grip because you decided to be bigger than it. You decided to grow. If everything you heard here touched something within you, if it resonated in any way, I ask one thing of you: share it. Because maybe, just maybe, someone you know is going through exactly what you're going through. Maybe someone is going through this internal chaos and doesn't know how to deal with it. Maybe someone is so lost in the pain of anxiety that they haven't yet understood that it can be the key to their growth. Have you ever stopped to think that by sharing this video, you might be offering someone the opportunity to change their life? It may seem small, but the truth is that the right words, spoken at the right time, can save a life. Jordan Peterson reminds us of this. The right words at the right time can save a life. Don't underestimate the power of something simple, like sharing a message, a video, or a word of encouragement. The person you're sharing this with may not be in a place where they can ask for help, but the simple act of taking this step, of opening this door to self-knowledge and change, could be the key to finally finding the path to transformation. This is the time to stop hiding. You are not alone on this journey. We all face anxiety. We all face the fear of not being enough. But the only way to overcome this is to not try to do it alone. This is a collective effort. When you share your experience, when you share your story, you create a network of support, a bond of humanity. You show others that they are not alone. And in doing so, you begin to realize that you too can be a beacon of light for those still lost in the darkness. This doesn't mean you have all the answers, nor that anxiety will disappear from your life. It just means you have the courage to live your truth, even with anxiety, and are willing to share this journey with others. This creates a space for all of us to grow together, supporting each other as we face the inner monsters we all carry. So, if this spoke to you, if it touched your soul in any way, share it, because maybe someone you know needs to hear this. Maybe someone needs to be reminded that they're not alone, that it's possible to live with purpose, even when trembling inside, that courage isn't the absence of fear, but action despite it. And perhaps by sharing this, you're also making a choice for yourself. The choice to be someone who not only faces their own monsters, but who helps others face theirs. And through this act of generosity, of empathy, you begin to realize that anxiety, which once seemed so isolating, is now the force that connects you to others, that propels you to a place of greater humanity, of greater connection. After all, we're all on this journey together. Each of us has our own battles, our own pains and insecurities. But by sharing, by reaching out, by offering a word of hope, you begin to create a movement that can truly transform lives. So share it, because who knows, the simple act of sharing this message might be the moment when anxiety begins to lose its power over you and others.